I wish I never saw Attack on Titan. No, this is not a joke. I absolutely stand with this statement. Attack on Titan is like nothing I had ever seen before. All of its characters, its world building, and down to the way the show handles set pieces, all of it just makes for something that, if given the chance, I would absolutely take to unsee all of it and wipe it completely from my memory. This is me. Hi, my name is Charles, and as you can see, I'm a huge fan of Marvel and DC, Star Wars, Transformers, and way more. These franchises have been amazing at capturing the imagination of children across the globe. Growing up with these Western shows made their jump to Attack on Titan quite the shock, considering this was my first ever anime. There was a lot to pick up on, and oh boy, I can't wait to now share with you why I wish I had never seen any of it. If you enjoy the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and to turn on notifications. Thanks. I'm going to be talking about Attack on Titan in a few separate chapters, and using these other franchises I adore so much as a point of reference for comparison. Through this, you'll begin to get a greater idea of my overall thought process on the show as a whole. Then, you'll be able to see my current predicament. Starting with tone, this is a topic I always love to talk about here on the channel. For me, it's where most movies and TV shows go wrong straight out of the gate. Having moments where characters are quipping after every punch, or after every emotional beat. This is a huge deal breaker for me. Something that most of my favorite Western franchises frustratingly get wrong. When you actively work at undermining your own story, it leads down a path where, when you eventually try to have that climactic, sincere moment, ultimately, it just doesn't have the impact you're desiring, leaving you in this middle ground of half laughing and half being invested, where we are constantly being reminded of things that like, oh, he doesn't like the fact that his name is Ant-Man, ha ha ha, which, yeah, that just sucks.
And on a long enough timeline, everyone becomes a quipster.
Bitch, please, you've been to space.
To be able to really stay in the moment is sure, it's risky, but when it pays off, the euphoria is immaculate. The fear is that you will come off as campy or the moment will feel unearned. So instead, when you achieve the character growth that you're desiring, enough to move their arc forward enough, you then play it off with a joke, so ideally, you can cash in on a quick laugh while you're at it. In their minds, or the minds of the writers and the people at these studios, this formula is a win-win. But sadly, rarely is this the case. The devil's advocate here is that for the most part, the shows I tend to put on or just enjoy, its target audience is much more broad, to say. It's intended to be able to be viewed by people of all ages and demographics, in which the style I've just described has been a proven formula to get the results that companies like Disney or Warner Brothers are after. So when I decide to put on Moon Knight or Obi-Wan or any other MCU properties, the expectation now to have characters really committing to what's happening is lessened due to how many times I have been disappointed. People really seem to just eat this shit up with protagonists that quip and are written in the style of your Stephen Grants or your Tony Starks, or how they rewrote Thor post Avengers Age of Ultron. It kills me, but it's just the current status quo. I understand that Star Wars is needing to be aimed at kids. That's always been their intention. It's just that most of my go-to franchises have nothing to cater for the more mature side of storytelling. It's not to say that I need edgelord content. I don't need sass from my Robins showing the new dark side of Dick Grayson. But for the rare exceptions like Arcane, Invincible, and very recently Stranger Things taking the world by storm, it just goes to continuously prove my point just repeatedly. These well-known IPs that I enjoy can do this too. Marvel is doing decently well for themselves at the moment, but the burnout for these shows will kick in. People will get sick of it if it continues to be done how it is being done currently. This spread of fatigue will bleed into the other properties Disney is currently working on if they're not careful too. I get comments on my TikTok telling me, "Oh Charles, don't you know Star Wars and Transformers are for kids?" And like, yes, I know. No shit. I understand this.
The first one was for fucking kids.
Right.
Yep. The second three were for different fucking kids, and this one is for kids.
It's not a very hard concept, it just frustrates me. Seeing movies and shows constantly holding back their own stories just because they don't want to commit by keeping a consistent and mature tone, it's just, you should be able to get how frustrating this must make me feel, and I think you feel the same way. Like, just anyone watching this has to be in the same state of mind. This is where Attack on Titan comes in, because Attack on Titan does not have this constraint. From episode 1, it is clear Hajime Izuyama knows where the show ends, and that the tone of the show could not be more laser focused for that ending. When the first words uttered describe humanity as a trapped animal, cattle ready for the slaughter, the show just starts with no intention of holding back from the brutality of its narrative. Humanity is about to go through hell, and we get to see all of it through this gorgeous WIT animation and a beautiful score to accompany the horrors we see. It is by far one of the ballsiest premieres I have ever seen, and it keeps this level of balls through its 4-season run that has so far aired. For how much talk of genocide, death, and outright just misery, keeping keeping a consistent tone is necessary to be able to properly cover all of these said topics with weight. Thankfully, the jokes about Cheese Whiz have been left off the table.
What do you think is coursing through my veins right now?
Cheese Whiz?
In my opinion, fat shaming and jokes towards depressed characters in your ensemble cast, whilst the plot being about mass extinctions, never bodes well. Attack on Titan keeps the pedal to the metal throughout its entire run. When I come away from watching an episode, I'm always left with these moments of pure emotion just being left on my mind, often being left speechless. And the tone is a major factor as to why it's able to do this so well. And to be honest, it's something that every season only gets more and more skilled at. As the tone starts to get darker and darker, the balance is always so well handled. There isn't just one wacky side character, the one that's only there for laughs. Even for the length of this video, I don't discuss every single aspect of the show, but I have to touch on Sasha quickly. She's the perfect example of what I mean of a character who would normally be restricted to just being that funny dumb character who does silly things for a laugh every few episodes. But don't get me wrong, she's often hilarious, like bringing a potato to training or stealing meat from the MP quarters. All of her scenes have left me with a good chuckle, but it's never at the expense of her character or at the expense of someone else. It's more so used often to bring characters together in a really charming and human way. During these moments of characters going through the thick of it, her bubbly personality brings joy to their hearts. And on the flip side, she's allowed to grow into this amazing character with so much depth, and even with logical story reasons for her humor and attitude towards everything. To have a show that's this committed to the story that it has planned out with this tone is rare to say the least. However, this only further adds to why I wish I had never seen Attack on Titan. Something that needs to be addressed along with the show's dark and consistent tone that I love is its writing from a more holistic viewpoint. Attack on Titan consistently looks to set up tropes or storylines that I've seen a million times before. However, it either subverts my expectations or far exceeds them to become the new definitive version of that arc that does play out. The show's attitude towards pacing and storytelling is like no other I had ever seen before. Izuyama works to continuously keep things moving forward to the point of borderline information overload, but not quite. It's right on that razor fine edge. After every finale of an arc which lasts up to 3 to 5 episodes, the status quo is always being evolved. Information that now changes how you see things on repeat viewings. Information that always makes you question things. Always, where is it all going? Every moment keeping you on your toes. Who is going to be revealed to be the next Titan shifter? Is this a flashback or is this a flash forward? When did this character learn to do that or learn to speak this language? The attitude towards its narrative is something that just makes me, when watching any other show, just feel utter pain. Attack on Titan changed the way I see the best way to deliver plot and story details, while also building amazing characters to whom I can grow deeply attached to. Attack on Titan is literally one of the only shows where its pacing is one of its best qualities. The lore behind Attack on Titan is so vast, it's insane. And the best thing about its lore is how it's also pivotal to the story that's being told at that specific moment. None of it is just over-explaining details or overindulging in itself. It doesn't get trapped in the messiness that some worlds have. There is none of the, oh, we find out about how a character got their iconic blaster or their last name. Okay, that may have been a little targeted towards Solo, but sorry, you get the point. Everything from the 1,000-year war to the deep systemic issues from the history of the world make it just so compelling. Hearing the different perspectives on similar information in regards to history is also so very engrossing. To even the concept of 9 Titans with unique abilities. All of this is ideas I have seen in other franchises or just akin to these type of ideas, but here it feels so clean and fluid. Its lore goes hand in hand with the plot, and for a show so bloody short, that's damn impressive. None of it feels introduced too early too. None of the outside world, nothing from Marley or the Warriors, nothing overt, making for scenes where it's seriously tense and allows you to ask deeper questions on inspection. When the show is this smart with its lore and world building, it makes for revelations later on the show so much easier to pull off and to feel so much more earned. So many times shows have no idea how to handle such key information. The delivery of the plot or exposition is way more important than most stories give credit. By season 4, we finally get a full episode with Ymir and all of it just starts to fall right into place. The strings being pulled become so clear. The dialogue, everything, all of it, and I know this sounds like a broken record, just feels so unearned. So many of the shows or movies I grew up with have these deep intrinsic lore, yet none of it feels as natural as this. None are tying their story this seamlessly. I know it's typical for a lot of animes to have large sections or arcs of just training or something, but the training arc here is one I seriously enjoyed, and that's all it is. A small span of episodes where our main characters become scouts and train. I was able to read into relationships and the archetypes of so many of these key players in the story, and it's also fun and enjoyable with so many great moments throughout the entire cast. The little bits of foreshadowing or the placing of breadcrumbs that lead to moments later in the show, it's so gratifying. Seeing Eren fail at training and having to go to characters like Rhino or Bertold for help was seriously cool to see. For a moment there was a part of me that actually thought, is Eren even cut out to be a scout? It felt weird to have basic scenes of characters in a mess hall be so captivating. My only issue with this arc is its length being incredibly short. I felt as if in some of the OVAs it shows that there is so much great material here that could be expanded upon between these characters considering their years of bonding. Granted, for the overall plot, not much does move forward, so I think it's as short as you can get it to move the chess pieces to where you need it to be for the invasion of the Tross district. We see our cast of characters become scouts. That's all it's needed for an arc like this, introducing us to all the major players. It's just moments like the apparent odd nature of Bertold's sleeping patterns that led me to believe that I was somehow watching the show incorrectly, in that I was missing key information when in actuality, there wasn't anything I was doing wrong or didn't pick up on. The show just didn't cover this at that point. Not that the information was important to the main plot or something, it just adds some just basic characterization that the show already has in spades.
The positions you could sleep in were an art form, Bertolt. I'm not kidding. We all loved waking up to see your contortions in the morning. Used to predict the weather with them.
One sequence that truly sets things into motion a bit later into season 1 was the action set piece in the forest with the female titan. So much exposition is here and all of it is done through action. We learn what the scouts know, we learn what happens to be Annie knows in the situation, and the dynamics of the entire scene, all of it is just so damn good. When talking to friends, in hindsight, obviously Levi Scott was going to die. Their role was always to be the jobber for our villain Annie to look cool and imposing. Killing them with ease showcases Annie's ability perfectly. However, on my first watch, I didn't really care for all that. It was all of that combined with Eren's development that took most of my attention. This entire span of episodes is just so, just wow. All of the exceptional writing along tied directly to the visuals and the music perfectly. This scene is often one I just rewatch on YouTube, just replaying over and over again. The deaths, one by one, of Levi's squad is just so haunting. Seeing this amazing, powerful squad scream in terror is, the sound design is impeccable. We are constantly being told how amazing this team was, how unwavering they are, how many titans they've all killed, the assists, showboating their tallies and treating this as a sport. Most of it was all being reinforced by them trying to instill their ways onto Eren, all the monologues they have. To back that all up, Eren's narration of all of it, having his mindset be so clear to the audience was something I just loved. So to see all of it go south like this was executed to perfection. Eren screams, the music. I think this is when I knew the show was absolutely something to have my respect and complete ownership of my mind rent-free. It was touching every note I needed to have me on its side. The slow-mo as Eren drifts in the air, the transition as the main motif kicks in, the look of dread in Annie's eyes. In the span of 4 to 5 minutes, so much is communicated. The stage of setting everything in motion as to what Eren does next is as engaging as it could possibly be. We see what Eren really wants to do, and we know where the authoritative figures stand in and what he should do. Then we see him struggle with that burden. Through character choices, consequences come at a heavy price. The right decision, though, is never clear. Never is the audience made to feel like they could actually make a better call in any decision, or made to feel like we're smarter than any of the players involved. The truth of the matter is that the writing is far too good and nuanced to be ever clear enough about what is right or what is wrong. Decisions that need to be made always have a flow-on effect that far exceed the foresight of even the smartest characters in the show. This is our first true Titan v Titan fight, and it's everything I had hoped it'd be. The best part about all of this is that I do get all the amazing character development that puts my brain to work, the stuff that I get to chew on, while also allowing the monkey part of my brain going, ooh, yes, transform, let's go! To think it only gets better from here on out. Look, Season 2 ups the ante even more. It's one huge arc. Side characters absolutely shine through, and its pacing is even better than Season 1. It has moment after moment where I'm just awestruck. In season 2, I now begin to love Historia. I love Ymir now. I love Sasha even more. Even Connie and Jean really get some good moments. We get one of the best spans of episodes, which is the, yeah look, it's the spans of episode you're thinking of, but come on! The reveal of the identity of the Colossal and Armored Titan sequence is one that I don't think could be topped. Unless we count something from season 4, but no, that's not fair. Not now. Every single person that has viewed the show knows and loves this scene. It bops so bloody hard that while writing this video, while making this video, I got the chance to talk about it before this even came out. And so yeah, this scene fucking slaps. But there is just something about the fighting choreography that hits different. The number of shots from the human perspective as these titans land blow after blow, the striker versus grappler, the fight for the ages. We see little flashes of the past in between that showcase some of my favorite interactions between characters. It really is, and I can't put this clear enough, some of the best shit I've ever seen with how well all of this is done. And if you know me well, then you know I am an absolute sucker for good one-liners or badass speeches and comebacks.
Besides, who would you be without me, Prime? Time to find out.
So one that comes absolutely out of nowhere that I love comes from Eren in this sequence, and it's one of my favorite passages of words. Just words put together, just period.
You know what? There's no telling what you murdering hypocrites were trying to accomplish. But now that I think about it, your master plan seems to have a few holes in it. Want to eradicate humanity? Maybe next time don't teach me how to kick your ass!
It's so good. I just fucking love everything Eren just said here. It's so cool, it's dumb, but I like it. I have only touched on a very small amount of the amazing qualities of Attack on Titan's writing, but I think it captures my contention pretty well. Arcs that are set up get their payoffs. Characters are engaging and go on such emotional and transformative journeys. Every single arc carries something of importance or something of note.
On Paradis, the king has been deposed, the founding titan stolen. The thief is an enemy to every man, woman, and child outside of his island. An enemy of peace. His name is Eren Yeager.
Eren Yeager. Eren starts off like many protagonists. Whiny, petulant, and weak. The arc was very much set up to be another I Am the Chosen One style stories, where he's our one and true savior. Like many things I had assumed or predicted about the show, I was wrong. Eren Yeager isn't treated like any protagonist in any form of Western media. Not one that I've seen at least. Eren is 100% true to his own beliefs, and he's so incredibly stubborn, it's actually insane. He will enact anything he feels fit, and a lot of it puts him not in the best of light. He has so many layers of depth that I was just struck with awe every step of the way, and his story hasn't even reached its climax yet. You could use what I said to describe most of the cast actually. The complexity aspect, not the incredibly stubborn and petulant part. The shades of absolute black and white do not exist in the show at all. It's similar to the color palette of any MCU film, it's pure grey. The show, although it seems to be just about heroes defeating villains, in actuality, it's way more complex and transcends that conventional concept completely. Watching Eren develop is refreshing and gripping. AOT treats him in a way that his flaws are on his sleeve, and other characters call him out on it. We see every single step he takes into becoming the person he is by season 4. All the groundwork is all there from episode 1. It's genuinely insane that the story hooks for insane plot twists are all ingrained from as early as its premiere episode. There is foreshadowing within the episode itself, then foreshadowing within the first few arcs and the larger ideas. Then somehow, there's even more. This entire episode is one neat bow, perfectly working as it should be. You won't be able to pick it all up until way later. If you've seen it, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's Inception levels of fuckery. The only way I can describe it is if you've seen anything J.J. Abrams and know of his mystery box technique, imagine that concept if it actually fucking worked. That approach for everything. I'm always asking questions, always wondering what's going to happen. What are the characters thinking? With Eren being the vehicle for all this, it's nothing but exhilarating.
Eren, behave while I'm gone, and I'll let you in on what I've been doing in the cellar. Agreed?
14 minutes and 30 seconds. One of the smallest uses of this approach is dropped. The key to the cellar. It takes 3 full seasons to find the answers to this very question. The show truly respects the audience enough to give small answers along the way just to tide over our feelings of hunger. Why is this key important? Who really is Eren's dad? Where did he go? What could he be hiding? What were his intentions to reveal this to Eren now? And after the initial attack by the Colossal and Armored Titan, how could the implications of knowing what's down there have changed? What was Grisha thinking during all of this? As time goes on, you ask questions like, wait a minute, where did he go during the initial attack? And somehow everything is answered. There's just so many amazing questions to ask about every aspect of the show. The pilot sets up all of these different arcs in motion, which leads to one of my favorite moments of the entire show. And I know, AOT vets, this is old news, this is 2012, 2013, but watching a child Eren be fully engulfed into his anger and desperation to save his mum is a sight to behold. Being swept away by the show's main motif as it slowly builds towards the death of his mum, it is genuinely, and I cannot stress this enough, it could not have painted a better picture as to why Eren must go on the path he is destined to go on. This has to be one of the clearest and most concise calls to actions I have seen in years. Funnily enough, I have to double back here. I wrote this part while Season 4 Part 2 was still airing in dub. This part specifically right before the episode where we're introduced to the idea of the Attack Titan's ability to not only see memories of the past, but also to show glimpses on the future. And that Eren can hold off and deliberately show certain moments to people in the past to get the intended result that he always meant to have happened.
Yes, this must be the moment our memories have been leading us toward for generations. The power of the Attack Titan offers us brief glimpses into the lives of those yet to inherit it, meaning it allows us to witness events in the future. He can witness the future?
It sounds so insane, but it's just so cool, and I just eat all of this shit up. It is genuinely insane that all of this was set up from the opening seconds of the show. So to use the wording above, why is the damn cellar key so important? Now, not only can we look at this through Grisha's point of view, which was the point of view we had up until now, we can see now this from the perspective of what did Eren want to show his dad that led him to the conclusions about everything leading up to this moment.
Stand. Fight. If you want to restore freedom and dignity to Eldia, then stand, even in death. Even after you chose to start this story. You have to see this through. Complete your mission and save Mikasa and Armin.
Even typing that out and me saying the words right now, that concept on itself is so damn cool. This leads to more and more theories and thinking about whether or not certain things did or didn't happen, what was right and what was wrong. All this brings me to how Eren is different from other leads. I've only described a few moments within his call to action from the very first episode of the show. Every line on rewatch carries more and more weight. Harness as he talks about his own fears after calling Eren weak and that he's just a child, those exact words becoming reoccurring in Eren's initial arcs in the early seasons. Simple words, the main character doesn't want to be seen as weak. He wants to fight, to keep moving forward, something that nearly every single movie or show tries to tackle. Far out, if you've seen any CW show, a single episode will do, and those words will be ingrained into your brain. Having to hear Barry complaining that he's too slow or too weak to fight whatever villain he has for that season in the same hallways as they walk through it, it's just, here it's different. Everything about this simple concept is different. How it's all tied together, listening to Eren argue with other characters in the show about morality with no clear sign of who is right in the conversation. It's just characters arguing their own beliefs.
Our last enemy wanted to eat us. We don't have an excuse like that for killing these people. It's just that their views are different. No, it's just that they're in another group, and for that we'll take their lives.
Armin.
We're not good people. Not anymore, at least.
Man, this is just fine dining type of stuff. When I try to think about other calls to actions just in media, none are as visceral, none are as impactful, as long lasting, as good at planting seeds as this. The first arc of the show is the constant message of Eren building his vengeance for these monsters. Like I said in the intro, this was my first anime, but I also knew nothing going in. I didn't know people could turn into Titans, let alone that Eren, our main character, was one to begin with. So seeing Eren get taken out so early in the season, I was just struck with a sense of, where the hell is this going? The moment felt like our hero moment. Everything was going his way. Finally, a huge speech after losing a team member. The score, it's singing. The animation has him flying through the city. It's amazing. Then gone. Not only does he lose a limb, he's then forced to launch into action to save his best friend, now looking to be devoured by a titan. We then get this beautiful scene like 3 episodes later. Here is where Eren makes his vow in all of his glory to slay all of the titans, while also transforming into one. Eren screams as he throws his chopped off arm in the air, sends shivers down my spine.
Kill them with my bare hands! Do you hear me? With my bare hands!
The other thing to note is that Eren becomes the very thing he swore to destroy. This won't be the first time Eren is seen as hypocritical in this type of sense, and you could say that one often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it. This quote was one that I thought was said by a character within the show. I thought Armin or someone had said it, but to my surprise, I cannot see any evidence of that. And now, funnily enough, it turns out to be a quote from Kung Fu Panda.
One often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it.
It paints such a clear picture for Attack on Titan and brings up such interesting talking points around the show's message. Characters in the show discuss the idea of, was Eren always showing these tendencies? When did his ideology switch to become the tyrant seen later in the series? Now, that deeper part of the question can come later in the video. However, it's undeniable that the impact that it has on the start of the show is cataclysmic. Every aspect of the writing throughout is layers and layers deep of characterization that allows us to fall in love or hate the characters on screen. With a scene like this, deep inside the belly of a titan, I became infatuated with Eren. I was on the Eren Yeager train. This part of the hero's journey already had me hooked, all thanks to how clear this call to action was. Now, obviously, the binary sunset is the blueprint of call to actions. Episode 4 with Luke and the return home sequence, it's exactly what I'm talking about. Tying the call to action with the main motif and it hitting that bloody hard, it's rare, but when you see it, the hold it has over you is inestimable. The only comparisons I can think of anytime recently, actually not even recently, they're all decently old. I look to Batman Begins or maybe some of the early Marvel movies, but none come to mind that are as striking as mentioned before. I love Man of Steel and everything to do with Clark, but the literal reason why that movie is so divisive starts and ends with Clark's motivations not being clear enough to the majority of audience members. His goals come across as weak, with people not knowing why he becomes the Man of Steel, why he becomes Superman, other than it's the movie's title. Even if the style in Man of Steel was absolutely there, the first fight sequence is breathtaking without a doubt. The music and visuals are absolutely up to scratch and up to par. The raw nature of why Clark is this hero, for being the beacon of hope, that answer was too vague for too many people after 143 minutes. Too many people just were going, I don't know, and that's a problem.
Oh, shit.
The Raimi Spider-Man movies, they came out 20 years ago. Far out, I'm getting old. But the character is still the showcase on how to nail motivation within a superhero genre. And that in itself is a shame. I really do think that the genre at the moment is lacking in pure character-driven work.
Oh boy, yeah.
There are 100% exceptions to the rule, like Spider-Verse or Logan, but we are getting so much content at the moment where there are only a few and far between that are bother even aiming for the sky, both visually and narratively speaking. Just having something as satisfying as it can be, Phase 4 of Marvel isn't trying to do any of this. With videos on this platform already pointing out that Marvel is beginning to just yada yada its way through the first act to get to the more interesting parts of the story, to put it plainly, it just sucks. It really does. As for Transformers though, boy, oh my god, do we even go there? Like, there's not even an attempt with anything as granular as any of this. And this is only if we're talking about calls to action, the very starting block to any hero's journey. It's like step 1, step 2. This is me trying to give all these other shows and movies a chance, because if we were to go to about arc progression or to go into any other part of the hero's journey, it's going to make them all look out to be amateurish at best. Make them all look like they weren't even trying. Only something akin to Arcane or Invincible even come close to the very best of these franchises. franchises. So many of the conversations when talking about these characters go in the exact same way. When talking to friends or on Twitter, to literally anyone that can listen to me, always has ifs and buts. All of these characters have exceptions to where the arc stumbles or falls flat. We have to make exceptions and to exclude those moments. I love Rey, but oh, her ending in The Rise of Skywalker was rough and doesn't work for me. MCU Spider-Man, oh, I liked him in Civil War, and in Homecoming it was pretty good and it all came together in No Way Home, but in Far From Home I feel like his arc stumbled. I love Optimus Prime so much. Oh, what did you say, random citizen? What growth did he go on throughout his respective movies and shows? Well, that wasn't the point of it. I just like him for his speeches and his stoicness in the face of adversity, akin to the arc of Captain America in the MCU films, who also goes on a confusing circle of an arc of wanting to find a new home in a new time. He does in Age of Ultron, begins to settle for his niece, and then backflips to begin dating Peggy. At least most of it was enjoyable, but these were my favorite characters from these franchises. And we go deeper and it starts to get worse, like in Endgame with Thor and Hulk. Oh, just when looking at just only Eren, the depth of his story and the maturity it's allowed to have, it's unrivaled. No complimentary novels that explain plot holes are needed, or extra spin-off shows to add characters to explain how killing kids became suddenly okay in your head. Eren Yeager just is the real deal. Now wait a minute.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Did I say before Eren was unrivaled? This is Attack on Titan, my bad. Izuyama had different plans. There is someone else who also shares a lot of the qualities as Eren Yeager. Gabi Braun's inclusion into Season 4 comes in a package that I know amongst long-time AO2 fans can be divisive. She is indicative of the writing overall for the season. The arc she goes on, though, is among one of my favourites in the entire show, so let me set the record clear. I love Gabi, and to see her journey was something I certainly didn't expect, but I am seriously happy to have witnessed. The start of Season 4 does quite a lot out of the gate. There is quite a large time jump, there's new locations and characters. It really is a whole other side that we haven't really seen before or dove into. Marley and the mainland taking up so much screen time is such a huge risk to start your final season with. If you'd pitched me the idea that you would spend the first hour and a half of your final season with only a few recognizable characters and away from parody, I would have said, you're crazy, you can't do that, there's no way. And somehow they've pulled it off. Izuyama paces this entire arc amazingly, and MAPPA really had outdone themselves and did a great job in their efforts to adapt the story. The amount of pressure they were under to follow up WIT was immense, and a lot of shows in their final seasons or in the home stretch have done a few things as I've mentioned before, time skips or evolution on a status quo to get things to where they need to be just for the final stretch of the story. However, unlike those other shows that I can think of, Attack on Titan doesn't miss a single beat in this regard. Season 4 of Attack on Titan somehow is able to get across the idea of that next generation while also continuing to feel like everything is earned and set up stories perfectly, even while making huge jumps in characterization that could easily be divisive. With Marley and this time jump does come large leaps in technologies. Cars and aircrafts are now the norm, guns are not as much of a handicap as they were on parody during Season 3, and with all that, we now see the outside world and how they've been living all this time in comparison with the large amount of the show we'd all been watching for so long. Simple instances where we get multiple scenes of Marley's people eating these amazing looking courses without any concern, yet anytime a subject of Ymir eats the same food, they go absolutely ballistic in how delicious it all is. And common foods like ice cream are seen as these amazing feats of accomplishment, something that also highlights Eren's separation from the rest of the group due to the memories of his father and Kruger. I bring this all forward to now say that how they use Gabi perfectly showcases her arc or her story being so similar to Eren's. You can see the writing on the wall for what they were going and what they were doing. Gabi is going to be Marley's Eren.
Why, Reiner? Tell me why my mom was eaten by a Titan.
Don't you want to do something? Don't you want to know why all these people had to die?
She has the same tenacious spirit as him. She has the same brash and arrogant tone in her speech, going on about self-proclaimed importance due to something they feel they are destined to do. However, this desperately wanting to be a proactive protagonist turned into a passive one, a protagonist that now reacts to their world instead of enforcing the change they want to see, feeling powerless as a result, is such a great writing tool, and they use it so amazingly. She has to react to her friends being murdered in front of her own very eyes. She has to react to her home being destroyed, react to everything in her life being trampled on. All her anger, she is now fully engulfed into this war. She has now been brought into it through the sins of the generations past as the cycle of violence continues. In her first real act, we see her contribute to this war against the Devils of Paradis, shooting a scout out of the air, climbing aboard to gun down Sasha in cold blood, a decision that now dictates her future for the rest of the season to come. Where Gabi starts is so refreshing. 4 seasons in and it feels like we get this like mini reboot, this refresh in the middle of the story, a quick introduction to all these new stories and arcs, all these new yet familiar characters. I've never seen a show pull off a stunt like this and have it work, to make this big of a risk and come out better for it. The pure determination and rage in Gabi's eyes is the stuff I live for in stories, and I thought I'd been satisfied with Eren in this department, but to see Gabi just screaming, running down the street, bolting straight into danger, as she now is stuck in this vicious cycle the rest of the cast find themselves in. The comparisons with Eren don't stop at starting in similar positions of pain and vengeance. Gabi's arc illustrates someone being in the mindset of blind nationalism and loyalty to a cause, and then the slow turn from that point of view over to one of empathy, one that the audience can get behind. The amazing ability this show has in showcasing ideologies and perspectives is immaculate. Never have I just gotten a kick out of 2 opposing factions just having their equivalent leadership characters talk in a non-confrontational debate while stew is boiling in between them. Step by step, Gabi is brought up with these people who challenge her worldview.
I know it isn't perfect, but it's where the people I love live. So if somebody tramples it, I'm not gonna forgive them. Don't you want to know why all these people had to die?
Their home was trampled too. This is just revenge.
It's clear to see the allegories and the type of imagery Izayama was going with all this. To watch children go through this fictional dystopian version of it is still hard to watch, and at this point of the season, Gabi is very much stuck in this cycle of violence, a recurring theme of the season, with even the most intelligent characters being unsure how to break it. This story archetype is one that is often seen in media and can go either ways in terms of quality, especially if you're trying to have the audience side with the new cast of characters, who in turn need to do something against the established characters so heinous to the point that violence would begin to loop. My brain immediately goes to The Last of Us Part 2, in its attempt to make the players sympathize with the character of Abby. This proved to be extremely divisive and difficult even with the talented writers such as Neil Druckmann and co. The unfortunate thing about this specific example I think is due to the medium it is in. You play the entire first half of the game as Ellie, to then switch and play as Abby for the second half, bar its epilogue. In the game, Abby brutally with a golf club murders the massive fan favourite Joel after the events of the first game, where Joel had killed her father. That sparks the cycle of violence that sends Ellie on this murder spree, on to hunting down Abby and killing her and making her pay. The big separating factor, for me at least, of Attack on Titan and Last of Us is the medium they are both in. The Last of Us Part 2 forces the player to kill through these shooting galleries for 12 or so hours and ends with the final altercation, where the story leads to Ellie making the decision not to kill Abby, in turn being the one to break that cycle. These two elements for me and a lot of people don't quite mix. There is so much I adore about this depiction of the narrative in The Last of Us, but in the end it leaves me with a displeased sour taste. After hours upon hours of killing, the sudden shift of character to come to the realization just doesn't work for me in this instance. When you have these characters who are so stubborn and so strong in certain beliefs, and to have them suddenly switch on it just has so much of a risk to lose the audience. So that is why it is so great that not only does Attack on Titan avoid this entirely with Gabi, it avoids it with the entire cast when they make such large leaps in logic. Characters who betray each other or reunite, everything is always so earned, and if you keep a keen eye, the action was probably telegraphed way earlier, and look, to be honest, matching footage to this would be probably very difficult in editing because most scenes in the entire show can't prove my point on this topic. It is honestly astonishing that they can achieve this much with a character and their respective home in such little screen time. This entire arc for Gabi is just breaking her down. She's the face of this cycle of violence. She is the next generation, so we see her ideology over time begin to whimper. The once confident girl who'd kill every subject of Ymir till none remained became the girl who begged said subject to save their home.
I have no right to ask anything of any of you, but we can't save our families without your help. So please, please don't let our homes get trampled. I'm begging you.
Pairing Gabi and Falco up with Kaya and the rest of Sasha's family was so brutal. It was one of the only times in the entire show where we know information that characters on screen don't. We know who these people are, and so begins the ticking time bomb until...
What? Niccolo! What are you doing up in Mia?
Mia here's been keeping secrets from you. One being that she was the one who murdered Sasha.
The entire episode is just amazing, but this sequence especially, watching every single character react and make their next move, all of it was absolutely enthralling. Niccolo, someone Gabi had thought to be an ally, turns on her and outs her as the murderer, turning everything on its head. Gabi begs Niccolo not to hurt Falco, but Niccolo asks, "Is this brat someone special to you? You cared about him, huh? I used to care about someone too, a dirt-blooded Eldian." And at this point, Gabi is still in the mindset of, they did this, they did that, and it's just, it's so enjoyable, just engaging just to see how this all plays out. It takes the words of a father who acknowledges the pain of his daughter's death, that the burden of responsibility should stop with the adults in the room, not passing that burden forward, making the themes of the season and, well, the entire show as overt as they can be. Just when you think the show takes the foot off the accelerator, Armin begins speaking to Gabi about the looping thought of killing being on everyone's minds, that these Marley's people and their so-called allies, that they're all stuck and unable to leave this state of mind. The entire scenario reminds Armin of someone. That someone then walks in to proceed to drop the mic.
Always with the killing, it's like it's all you ever think about. Just like someone else I know. Here.
I adore the arc Gabi goes on for the first two parts of the final season, and I cannot wait to see where they take her character in part 3. I love the visual imagery to show the similarities in growth concerning Eren, and how both these characters are like mirror reflections of each other, only separated by a few actions that lead down very different paths. I hope that in the final run of episodes next year, they can carry the amazing character work that they've done so far. Irvin Smith. As I said before, I've always had a deep love for loud and confident characters who lead with their words of wisdom and acts of heroism, so my attention was quickly drawn to him. After starting the show, many told me his speeches and monologues are to die for, arguably the best I would ever see. Now, Irvin might not take the cake as my personal favourite leader in fiction, yet after finishing what is aired of the show, he is for sure up there at least. Irvin Smith, the insane leader that will do anything to push his ideas forward, that of his dream. Irvin's father was a teacher who had a theory. With Irvin going around sharing these theories, it sadly brought upon the disappearance and sudden death of his father. However, this only confirmed his father's suspicions, that there was something hidden amongst the wealthy and the powerful, something the people within the walls deserved to know. This set Irvin apart from the others. His goals were less simplistic, not in just saving humanity, but to unveil the truth. A more selfish desire than most, to be sure, an interesting angle to have our main leader, a character most are meant to be looking up to. He sets himself to become a devil, that he's abandoned his humanity. Because of this, he can make the decisions he needs to so he can save everyone else's. That this is a sacrifice he knowingly made. It brings up questions about what lengths are and aren't okay. A quote that stuck with me about Irvin was stated by Armin early in the show.
There's one thing I know beyond all doubt. Genuine harbingers of change must be able to do what others won't dare. Sacrifice their heart. Accept the burden of doing the unspeakable. Whether we'd like to admit it or not, the fact is this. To rise above monsters, we have to abandon our humanity. That's the irony, really. If you can't let it go, it's not worth holding on to.
This quote stuck with me. The way the show handles philosophy and the way it breaks down every character is immaculate. To be clear, I fundamentally disagree with this quote. The idea of losing your humanity to save it, in my eyes, leads to corruption and your decision making now becoming one that is tainted. It's completely hypocritical to have this ideological standpoint. Yet, considering it's coming from a literal child, it makes sense if his ideology isn't perfect or just sound just yet. He's just attempting to make the best of his understanding of the current situation and how he sees humanity's best chance at survival. There is no saying how my own ideological beliefs could change if I was in his shoes. I do not envy someone like him. Even if Armin is a genius, he's still susceptible to being manipulated or at least indoctrinated. Nonetheless, this is simply my point of view. The fact that characters within the show have this ideology takes nothing away from the story itself. This is by far not a criticism. Let me make that absolutely clear. This is just an observation of actions. The fact that characters have it allows them to be judged on a much deeper level than most characters in fiction. Good isn't an objective thing you decide to do or not to do. There is never a clear call to make that gets you to where you need to go. A place where humanity can finally be safe, where people you love can finally live in peace. And throughout the show, most evolve and grow in new and interesting directions. Irvin is so headstrong in his own philosophy, we get scenes of him knowingly sacrificing his own troops to bring out a mole. The mole, Annie being one of their own, hiding now as one of the MPs. Irvin comes up with a plan, risking everyone in Stohess so they can trap her. Yet, even when held at gunpoint about it, he doesn't flinch. He only sees opportunity, an opportunity for the betterment of humanity through one risky move, a step closer to his own selfish endeavor. He says casualties were to be expected. He's prepared to make those sacrifices to not only secure the mole, but maybe intel that could change the tide of the war to put humanity back on track.
Ervin, your arrogance has brought hell right to our door!
I know.
This was straight up cold. He is constantly battling the opposition, having people be against his thought process, in battle and in parliament. The public at times demands his head for his actions such as this. The arc surrounding his coup on the False King and the return to Shiganshina are just some of the best shit I've ever seen, period. There isn't a but. Rarely with this show is there ever a but. I don't think I've ever seen sequences as well coordinated as this, as well staged, as clear, as engaging, as fucking amazing as this. With so many individual moments having, oh, this is insane energy, I often just couldn't believe my eyes. To then have that be topped with even cooler stuff. At the center of all this is him. Is Irvin Smith. Never in my life would I think a show about some big, fleshy, mech things, killing some humans, would even have a chance at having characters be so close to my top spots in leaders or just in period, just in favorite characters in fiction. To have this much to say around its own world and its own politics, to have that reflect on our own society. Seriously, how does AOT handle so much on its plate within 22-minute episodes? This is such a monumentous thing to come out of my mouth. Not just about the show, but mostly around the surrounding the character of Irvin. I like to look at Irvin and compare him to other leaders in stories, to try to find out why I love him so much. Why a character like him not being in other shows makes it hard for me to get invested in anything else. Like Star Wars, let's have a look at this iconic franchise and see what I mean. One of my big criticisms of Star Wars is the conversation around what the Jedi should do and be. What do they represent? Fans argue about Grey Jedi this or Grey Jedi that. At the end of the day, there isn't an answer for them because they don't exist. They're not canon. Grey Jedi don't exist within Star Wars. The writing around what the Jedi actually did wrong isn't clear in the movies. The Jedi shall not know anger, nor hatred, nor love, that whole thing. The prequels did an awful job showing how horrible the nature of the Jedi were being run, and how quote-unquote they fell out of touch, or whatever phrasing Star Wars fans will use to describe this era of the Jedi. Due to the roots of the lore, there will always be Force users of light and dark. They will always be evenly matched and are destined to be against one another. At least if we follow the rules of the son and the daughter of the Force. All of it making it so free will or societal injustice isn't the cause of any actual problems within the world of Star Wars. No mystery, no way to stop it. Anakin was a child born of the Force, destined to be the balance to the Force, and he did exactly that as the prophecy stated. The course of events to lead to his turn was outright horrendous in 2005. Was it not for years later that all the puzzle pieces were finally put into place thanks to external media? Even with said external media, his turn was a little clumsy. Now, for the most part, it still just works for me. I can still enjoy it for what it's worth, with that extra connections to Rex and Ahsoka. Hell, even with the relationship with Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars, it all starts to fit into place of who these people are and the climate they were living in. But as for the Jedi as a whole, it's still entirely messy even years later. The Jedi in the prequels were hypocritical, and the writing was very much overt in the way that they were wrong in the handling of everything. From Anakin to the war itself, Luke then goes on to repeat their mistakes and goes into hiding due to his error. My issue with The Rise of Skywalker is that the answer of how to push forward beyond just being hopeful was never given. So Rey is destined to follow Luke's misguided path unless some divine intervention comes in. And that's where we left off the Skywalker saga. So from the very roots of just trying to enjoy the world of Star Wars, this question always lingers as more movies and shows come out attempting to connect the dots of errors, bringing back fan favorite characters from the past to make the masses happy. I fear the franchise's daring nature just to push forward and ask difficult questions is long behind us. We must look towards other sci-fi franchises like Dune to keep pushing the genre forward, whilst Disney milks my childhood and fills the gaps of the story that I didn't really need filling, but certainly fills the wallets of executives. This paragraph was meant to discuss Yoda and directly compare him to Irvin, but that isn't entirely fair. Now, I love Yoda, but literally the past 2,000 words of me diving into Irvin are nowhere to be found in Star Wars, and maybe that's my fault. My fault for wanting Star Wars to go deeper into something that is proven to be hit and miss in its own past. A franchise that is aimed at kids. I know. There isn't some interesting debate on ethics. There is no moral ambiguity, and the original trilogy, there is at least some ground to argue it's there and coming in strong with the connections to the Vietnam War, with what is there being provided enough fruit for the rest of the franchise to live off to this day. The conversation around interesting leadership and tough decision making does not exist in modern Star Wars. You can say it's aimed towards kids, so obviously it doesn't have that type of writing. Don't expect commentaries on society and war in shows and movies for 8-year-olds. Despite that, the Avatar franchise shows kids and adults alike adore the moral questions amongst their amazing fantasy world stories, being able to seriously challenge its viewers and ask seriously interesting questions while also claiming that Saturday morning slot. The answer always goes back to Avatar. 3 seasons of a TV show that always brings morality back to the center of every single episode. That was a kids show made 15 or so years ago, with 3 new animated feature films coming out in theaters soon from Paramount in this universe, so you just know that that style of storytelling from Avatar and that universe is just gonna come back, and I'm just so excited. Now, I love Star Wars. I will forever be a Star Wars fan. Nothing will change that fact. But maybe I need to dive deeper into the comics and the legend stories to find the type of writing and storytelling I'm after. It's just a shame this type of kick I'm looking for isn't here to be found. Sadly for me, it only gets worse. We gotta talk about the franchise and character that I'm probably most well known for. We gotta talk about Optimus Prime and the Transformers franchise.
Dude, I just bought 10,000 V-Bucks. I'm not gonna make rent.
To get one of those shoes, like 16 to 20 inch Optimus Prime.
He's doing it again! He's linking all of this to Transformers again! I can't do this anymore! Do these windows open? I'm jumping.
He's a defining trait of who I am.
He's doing it again.
Why? Literally why? Why Transformers? Again! Like, babe, there's still time. We can get into a hospital.
Yeah.
Let's just hope it doesn't get any bigger than this. This is stupid enough as is.
Jesus Christ. And that can be said about a lot of the aspects of the show due to...
Thank God I jumped ship from editing this shitstorm. Not only is the guy a fucking weeb, but now, for some reason, he needs to bring Transformers into this.
Or literally anyone who would listen to me.
The dude needs help.
No one ever truly understood what I was trying to say.
Buddy, really?
I'm going insane.
At least someone might like it, like the big time YouTubers.
I need help. I'm just so alone.
Dude, this is like the worst thing I've ever seen.
Seriously, what the fuck is this?
So bad.
Okay. They have to listen to me now. The only thing left to do is to upload this video. Okay, enough is enough. Attack on Titan has ruined everything. I can't return to the Hollywood slop. I have to save them.
I don't know why he bothers. He won't convince anyone of his contention. Not that Transformers or Attack on Titan are similar. Not that audiences will change, and most of all, not that studios will change the way they go about making the content we consume. There's nothing he can say to dissuade anyone watching this from this course.
If I do nothing, how can I live with myself? Knowing what I know, just to live with the ignorance.
When it comes to telling stories on these large-scale streamers, these billionaires and megacorps are just going to follow whatever data tells them. Whatever the algorithm dictates will make the most money, not what's best for the art.
I would say you about summed up my argument for me, but it fell upon deaf ears. Charles will go on to make this comparison and slaughter any hope of seeing true change. Come on, Charles. You can see what's gonna happen, can you? I recall him mentioning this to me when we first met. He said that he thinks it would be a mistake to use Attack on Titan as a comparison. Was that a lie, too?
Please, you have to listen to me. I have friends and family who are in danger. These corporations, they stole what little creativity Hollywood had. They'll die ignorant and unfulfilled. Can you honestly call that a life worth living? With art being this drivel? That we should just accept what studios turn out? No, I'm going to show them. YouTubers are shackled to anything outside of their niche they might reside in. The future has already been long since decided. I'm going to finish this video using Optimus and Eren, and to compare them and finally, once and for all, show that I have been right this entire time.
No!
I can't do it. Everyone's just gonna laugh at me. I can't go through with this video.
No, this can't be. Charles did write this segment. He had already recorded and finished editing, so how? It's in the past. The video's been made. It can't just change.
What are you doing? You're not done yet. In case you've forgotten, you had your own reasons to make this video. You used to enjoy watching the MCU and Star Wars, till you began watching that show about Titans. Think of all the people who have the same thoughts as you do, but don't have the platform to articulate themselves. Avenge them. Keep moving forward. Even if they hate you, even after they hate you. After all, this whole ugly story started with you.
I don't understand what's happening. None of this makes any sense at all. I just don't...
Hear me, subjects of this video.
That was him. I heard his voice.
You have listened to all my analogies and examples. Now you, the audience, can now sit and observe to be the subjects of my train of thought. All the walls of ideas and potential rebuttals are beginning to fall and crumble to the ground. Right now, you all sit and have your reservations and doubt. Some wish to exterminate takes like my own, or any like it. I won't let them have their way. They will see the truth. What's more, everyone, by the end, will have already turned and began their march to fight alongside me till nothing remains. Both characters are leaders of factions that are in a war they are constantly losing, against an enemy whose next move is rarely predictable and often seems to be 10 steps ahead. At every turn, it looks like the end of their noble cause has come. They are both working with little to no resources whatsoever. Both have large casts of characters they are connected to, and sadly, as time goes on, that list of characters that you could consider close to them only gets smaller and smaller. As more of their team members or family die off or turn out to be moles working for the enemy, the mission only proceeds to get harder and harder for them. Both characters are on the Mount Rushmore of giving inspirational speeches and sharing words of great wisdom. Both are just so stubborn in their own beliefs that sometimes they get in their own way, even if it might mean they will die in the process, showing that standing by their word means more to them. It's just that sadly, only one of them has truly had a depiction that puts the character under the microscope at every second they're on screen, and are being challenged to their very core, offering some of the most introspective conversations around leadership and destiny I have ever seen. Whilst the other has been forced to remain stagnant for the most of the franchise's long-running history, with writers being too afraid to really commit to a storyline that could put the titular character under proper duress, choosing to not challenge him to his core so we can have a better understanding of who he really is. Optimus Prime is a character known for his optimism and ideals towards the race of Transformers living together as one, while also looking to share this sense of idealism with humans when possible. He only wishes to have peace and see his people prosper on their planet, living and waking up to a better tomorrow. To be able to see Cybertron with a morning glow of life, knowing him and his Autobots can rest. In Generation 1, it's all just marketing for the toys. No real arcs or stories, but some truly iconic moments here and there with great inspirational quotes. That's 1984, so to compare that isn't really fair. It's iconic for sure, but very dated. The Michael Bay movies, however, okay, this becomes an interesting part of the script, because Bay's Optimus is...
I have sworn to never kill humans. Big mistake. But when I find out who's behind this, he's going to die.
Yeah, look, let's be real. It isn't really him. They share little to no similarities past the first film, and this could all have been very compelling. I'm serious, all the material is right there. Optimus, as the film goes on, becomes more and more sociopathic, showing murderous tendencies and constantly yelling, "I'm going to kill you!"
Give me your faith. No, Optimus! And my family. Or die.
If this was a deconstruction of the stoic character with strong morals being brought to his breaking point, becoming the very thing he swore to destroy, then sure, I would be 100% down for the Transformers franchise as a whole to have films that try to attempt this. That would be a bold and a really cool take on the character. However,
and it's just not Optimus, you know? It wasn't Optimus.
I'll kill them all.
You know, that's not Optimus, you know? Yeah.
Bay isn't going for that. Yes, there are grounds for it to be understandable that character would go down this path. Even so, to say that it is doing that deliberately is such a fucking stretch. Bay just wants Optimus to be a vessel for gruesome action with a PG-13 rating, nothing more. Instead of a deep conversation around the consequences of action, even if you have good intentions behind them, the movies don't even end up needing him to learn anything from his actions. They don't have Optimus see the errors of his ways or any real discussion on how he leads the Autobots. Behind the scenes, they obviously don't fucking care. That is clear, because they just write in new lore to make the next plot of the movie work. Oh, we need to see MacGuffins on this continent? Oh yeah, Transformers were here in the time before pyramids were made, or before the moon landing, or the time of the dinosaurs. Fuck it. They were just always here because why? Unicron. So if some of the most simple aspects of continuity aren't even able to be kept between movies, giving Michael Bay any fucking credit in the department of character growth would end my career of film critiquing. Now to the only Optimus that even stands a chance for comparison to any character that I've mentioned in this video. The Optimus Prime from Transformers Prime.
Every sentient being possesses the capacity for change.
Even his worst enemies deserve the opportunity at redemption. This is something that Optimus prides himself on. In the story of Transformers, Optimus is the last of the Primes. He's the sole reason the Autobot cause still exists. It's all come down to him. There could not be more pressure on a singular character in that universe than him. Optimus is rather humorless, acting as almost a sturdy foundation to allow others to emote and feel more comfortable on the team during moments of intense stress. So the times that Optimus does fully decide to let out his emotions, the drama of it all is always great to watch, because we, as the audience, know that's so out of character for him. This type of reaction shouldn't be happening. It's just such good writing.
Optimus, you want to see something funny?
No.
Unlike in the Bay movies, we rarely see him yelling and screaming, so when he does, oh shit, something is seriously going wrong. Because if he is mad or angry or showing any type of emotion, it puts additional stress on the team, which only makes things worse. If we are going to use the examples I had above to talk about Irvin, there are moments in Transformers Prime that I think that are also as intriguing as the deconstruction of philosophy and leadership. For example, in late season 1, the medic on the team Ratchet created a synthetic energon, their life resource, and began testing it on himself. The resource is becoming rarer and rarer in the show at this point, so it's paramount that they find a solution to their low supply. Amazingly, it worked. The unfortunate part is that it made him act upon his rage to the point it was putting people around him and himself in danger, which leads to him nearly killing an unarmed Decepticon miner.
Autobots do not inflict harm unless all other options have been exhausted. It is what separates us from the Decepticons.
The thing is, Ratchet proceeds to go off and feel no remorse and completely loses it at Optimus, beginning to yell at him that it was his methodology that led to Cybertron's destruction.
You know your problem, Optimus? For such a big, strong bot, you're soft. You didn't pound Megatron into scrap when you had the chance! Many chances, in fact!
In a lot of different incarnations of these characters, there have been many individual characters that have pushed against Optimus and his leadership for whatever reason. Versions of Grimlock have called Optimus weak and a poor soldier, unwilling to fight and kill when push comes to shove. However, it always comes across as more so that Optimus isn't as let's just go and fight as they are. They think fighting all the time is the best way to go about things, which, in most media, the reckless fighters are never depicted to be in the right. It's just against most codes and conventions. This is the first time I've seen the other side have some strong points to say. Ratchet may have gone about it the wrong way, potentially breaking protocol and killing someone who we see as potentially innocent or at least undeserving to lose their life. It's no doubt that the only reason Megatron or the Decepticon cause is still around is due to Optimus and his battle decisions around his ethics, his refusal to bend his code, akin to any argument made against the likes of Batman or Daredevil. It is something to think about. If Irvin was in charge, maybe a different outcome entirely in their long-running war could have been possible. They could have won years ago. Or maybe Optimus is the only reason the Autobots are still around, that there's still hope and optimism and generally a good heart amongst everyone in their team, that their ideology of good and peace is still being passed on to the next generation, that even in Optimus's passing, the message of always fighting the noblest of fight is always true. This is where the comparison between the two characters of Irvin and Optimus gets intriguing, because there are so many parallels in their narratives, direct calls they make that only differ due to their ideologies being on the opposite sides of the spectrum. To prove this, I want to start with Dark of the Moon. There are parallels in the exile of the Autobots to the Scouts in Season 3. In Dark of the Moon, humans decide that Autobots need to leave for them to be safe, taking up on Sentinel's ultimatum.
For such peace to exist, you must immediately exile the Autobot rebels you have harbored.
Optimus literally accepts humanity's decision, even going against his better judgment, and they decide to leave the planet. They ended up fake leaving and let Decepticons show that they won't leave Earth alone and it'll always be a risk to humanity. Then they plan their counterattack. After an entire city has already been wiped out and the Decepticon plan is fully underway, whereas Irvin and the Scouts arrogantly know they just are in the right and at least enough to continue moving forward with their plans and hope that it's best for humanity, trusting their own gut to the bitter end. That's what we can assume from the subtext. In Season 3, we see at times some of the Scouts begin to doubt their own mission, such as times like when Armin had to kill a human for the first time. They talk about the ethics of it all. Levi attempts to comfort them in that if he hadn't shot the gun, Jean, a comrade, a friend, would be dead. Who is to say that they are in the right for making a decision to take a life? Maybe they are in the wrong. Who knows anymore? Attack on Titan provides a very similar narrative point to Dark of the Moon, yet AOT's was much more, and I mean much better executed. Back to Transformers Prime, another strong point we can use is the season finales of Season 2 to that of Irvin versus the Beast Titan in the Return to Shiganshin arc in Season 3. Both arcs are so very similar in their structure and their plot hooks. Both have our heroes pinned, with our leader with little to no time to think of a plan to not only get out alive, but to also be in the right position for the next stages of the war. Any wrong moves from either leader ends the war outright, all their efforts amounting to nothing in the span of a single battle decision. I'll describe both scenarios, but first, Transformers Prime. The Decepticons have found the Autobot base after 2 seasons of trying and failing. The surprise attack completely leaves the Autobots in disarray. Optimus's call is to use their one escape, their ground bridge teleporter, to bridge everyone out of the base across the country of the United States to avoid capture. Then, to later regroup to organize a counterattack. This leaves him to be the last one on the base needing to destroy the bridge to not allow them to be tracked and followed, leading to Optimus being left for dead. The dressing of this sequence is utter perfection, and to see Optimus make this sacrifice left me speechless. It had me unable to sleep. Now, very similarly, we have Irvin Smith being pinned against the wall of Shiganshina, with the Colossal Titan hurling burning rubble behind them, in addition to the Beast Titan tossing deadly rocks from their front. His plan is to lead the remaining Scouts in a frontal assault, while Levi flanks around for the killing blow on the Beast Titan. This amazing feat of bravery and leadership is something not many characters could get away with. Irvin convinced hundreds of Scouts to ride to their deaths. Front on! If we were judging feats for a versus battle in leadership, this single feat alone gets Irvin up there amongst the very best in fiction. This sadly though leaves him in a state of near death. This speech Irvin gives here is, I cannot reiterate this enough, it's iconic, it's perfect, it is the best representation of what a good leader can do.
Did you say that of our slain comrades? What about their lives? Were they meaningless? They were not! Their memory serves as an example to us all! The courageous fallen, the anguished fallen, their lives have meaning because we, the living, refuse to forget them! And as we ride to certain death, we trust our successors to do the same for us!
So many times in fiction, we are told how amazing a character is. And even Attack on Titan uses this trope for its own benefit in the handling of Levi's squad. Irvin is never the subject of unnecessary pumping of tires. Never do I feel the show is telling me how I should be feeling something. It's only natural to see a scene like this and go, fuck me, he may have convinced me to ride to my death if I was put in that same situation. This is why I love the character so much, and the reason why so many people in the community also love him. However, jumping to the part that really hurts, the moments after these two amazing characters have made their noble sacrifices, now both characters lie on the ground amongst their ruins of their great cause. Everything that amounted to years of their fighting, both are being buried in rubble and debris, with injuries that have them losing a lot of blood and energon. With no certainty if their call was the right one, they're only left with their pride and hope for the future. Both luckily have young recruits that double back and save them, bringing them to safety. Both have MacGuffins that could bring them back from the brink of death. What's more, when offered, both refuse. Both had come to terms with their death, that the time for a new leader to rise had come.
Optimus, no!
For AOT, I think there's a lot of subjectivity on how to perceive the events of the show in every regard. With this specifically, Levi says he believes that this is where Irvin chose to die, that he'd already come to terms with his own death. For Transformers Prime, the talk amongst these few episodes is that you can't judge someone in the heat of a battle call decision. In a situation like this, Smokescreen really was left with the ultimate choice: to use the MacGuffin to save Optimus, or to save it and use it later on restoring their home. He had to make the call there and then, with no help. Smokescreen, whom, in comparison, is very much akin to the same respective age of the Scouts at this point, was the sole person to decide whether or not the greatest Autobot to ever live should continue to live or not, while also needing to carry the burden of becoming the next Prime. It is really funny to compare the responses of their respective teams after the decisions were made, with Levi, Eren, and Mikasa being very harshly judged amongst their ranks, while also being borderline abused.
You should be dead, and Erwin should stand in your place. I'm not alone in thinking that. All of us do. Everyone who read that report had the same thought. Why wasn't Erwin the one that was saved?
Comparing that to Ratchet's response to Smokescreen.
I did what I felt was right.
And your instincts have again proven to be quite sound.
Unfortunately, the comparisons for these two basically stop around here. The reason I picked Irvin was to really show that this archetype, this type of character, is my thing. Like, if you know me, this is my shit. Optimus is my fucking shit. Like, Jesus Christ. Transformers Prime is amazing. Do not get me wrong. I love its depiction of Prime. For all that, at the end of the day, it's still a kid's show with the intention of being able to sell toys to those kids, which was one of the reasons the show was cancelled in the first place. It was failing to do exactly that, sell toys to 9-year-olds. This is it. I can proceed to talk about Irvin for additional 25 minutes if I wanted to, because there's that much material on him. Whilst also being able to buy my Eren statue. I can have my engrossing story while also being an indulge in my silly toy stuff like this, but I don't get that luxury for the Big Red. Irvin had 3 full seasons of development in this exact fashion I've always wanted to see Optimus Prime. Going back now is really hard for me. Irvin Smith is the adaptation of the leadership archetype I've been waiting for all my life, while Optimus in a head-to-head versus battle may win out in leadership feats. That side of the debate is mostly for jokes, and I say it to really rile up my friends for the laughs, to get people on TikTok and people in my friendship group or even here on YouTube just mad. From a writing point of view, you're going to be pressed to be able to find a leadership character in a story that is as well written or as interesting to watch as this. As I said at the start of the video, Attack on Titan was my first ever anime, and I had no expectations going in. It could not have been lower. I kind of just wanted to go in my backlogs, start something, that I initially started in 2013, and just give it a chance. Because I knew I would like it, I just needed to get over that first hurdle that it's an anime and just get into it. Little did I know that I would be this subject of the cave theory, that I was leaving the cave for the very first time and now feel the heat of that sun and unable to go back. Back to comic stuff, Star Wars, Transformers, I feel different now. And unless studios change and stop making 6-episode seasons that are like movies, or just hiring directors they can bully around and just feel like corporate messes, I just don't think things are going to change. With these practices still going, shows like Andor or movies like The Batman are going to be the exceptions to the rule instead of being the rule itself. I had to wait so long for my favourite story archetype, or trope, if you will, to be finally adapted, and that's the fallen hero or the corruption arc of the protagonist. Eren and the Scouts just live rent-free in my head. And now, having read the manga to the end of this whole story, I can now be content with my opinion on the show. I did that because I want to protect my viewers who are watching this, so that I can protect the comment section so people can feel free to be in there and not feel like they're going to get spoiled if they are anime-only watchers. Yet, having now read the manga, that now leaves my stance to be absolutely solid, and is that maybe watching Attack on Titan was a mistake. Because where do I go now? Where do I go? For the longest time, I refused to watch anime and I couldn't get into it. You couldn't convince me, and it wasn't until TikTok do I realize really how rich this genre, this space, could really be. Initially, this segment as a whole kind of just felt like I was just like throwing jabs at the anime genre, and it felt really unfair. I need to make something even, you probably could tell from the writing of this entire video, something that needs to be clear is that I am coming from an ignorant point of view, and I'm not hiding that at all. This is kind of like I'm painting my hand red and showing you this is my stance. I don't know everything about anime. I'm still learning and kind of getting the grasp of things and how the codes and conventions of good anime really is. Yet, this still needs to be said because I'm not alone in my thinking of the few things that I'm going to say are the reasons why many people can't get into the space and why a lot of people don't respect it. The first one that I need to mention is fan service. That was going to be a given. Anyone who's, could have picked what my number one thing was going to be, it's kind of this weird, the fact that it's a term is just kind of disgusting. And for me at least, it kind of pushed me away. That anytime I would think about watching a show and then I would hear, oh, there's a 13-year-old with double Ds and that everything's just out. And it's just, that's a bit yuck, isn't it? That's not great. And you think that there's shows like High School DxD that exist, or apparently Food Wars is bad. That shouldn't be a thing. And the fact that, something as big as My Hero is facing controversies by putting a 15-year-old with caution tape over their bits on the front covers of magazines, that's not on. And to convince people who aren't in the space already to watch it, that's what you're going to have to fight against, because thankfully the biggest TikTokers are actually saying something. They're really using their platform to go, this isn't on, this doesn't represent the best it has to show. But try telling that to someone whose their TikTok feed is just anime girls half naked. It's a really tough battle. Now the next thing is nowhere near as serious, it's just the aspect of filler. Trying to convince someone, you gotta watch this show but it's 35% filler, or to skip the filler episodes, or use a watch guide to skip which arcs, or that is really tough. And the fact that, if you follow the filler guides, well then you have shows, and again, I haven't seen them, but I listen to fans on TikTok say the way they edit the episode to elongate it is they cut to everyone's reaction shot, or they have flashbacks. And look, I know lots of Naruto fans, and they say, yo, just watch this edit of it, it cuts out all the flashbacks and you save 40% of your time. That shouldn't be a thing, and I know there had to be weekly episodes put out, so they have to reuse shots and everything, and it's just easier to do it like that. But Attack on Titan doesn't have that, so I've been lucky just to be, in the space for it. I haven't had to deal with that. And that kind of connects to the next point, which is just the way a lot of these shows are written. That can include things such as power scaling, the humor, or just exposition dumps in general. To me, anime in my head had always been like Pokemon or Dragon Ball, where there's a lot of screaming, yelling, and when characters are leveling up, they just scream and then there's just a highlight around them, so that must mean they're more powerful. Or if something big in the plot happens, we have to have one of the characters just explain exactly what's happening, or else we, the audience, couldn't possibly get it.
Tricked me into thinking he was out of the fight. Armin was buying him time to make a replica Titan in his place.
And that's the thing. I thought that was anime as a whole. I thought this was just the entire space. I was wrong. But now I don't know where to go. I need your help because, I started with Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is not an anime, but I then moved to Attack on Titan and my eyes opened up. So I want you guys to help me decide what the next show should be. Down below, I want you to comment your favorite anime, or just an anime you think would fit my taste palette. I've spoken for over an hour now in this video essay, and you might slightly get what my tastes are now. So it's up to you guys. Where do you think I should go next for anime? To those that stuck around, thank you. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel and share this video around. It took me 6 to 7 months to get this out, and I've worked every day to try to get it out as soon as possible. This video was so big that I needed the help of all my friends. So to everyone here in the credits, but most importantly to Leon, Steven, Mauricio, Troy, and Christian, without you guys, none of this would have been possible. The links to their channels are in the description down below, so please, if their channel or their Instagram is there, follow them, subscribe. But until next time, see you guys.